Welcome everyone to Galaxy Stock Market Community Stock Market Analysis for the week starting November 3rd to November 7th, and a recap of what's happened this week and how we're going to be positioning for the week ahead. For those of you in our community, welcome. And for those of you watching this on Sunday on X.com and YouTube, thank you so much for subscribing and following our channel. Okay, we've got great community memberships. Check it out in the link in the description below. Today is November 1st. Happy November 2025. It's 8:38 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as I bring you this critical video. And as the title suggests, it started, folks. The bear market / market crash is going to start. And I've always said that October 31st to November 8th is the critical time frame in which the market will top and the correction / market crash will begin at that time. All right, here's the disclaimer. Pause it, read it. If you agree, please move forward. Thank you so much for following on x.com/galaxy.market and also on our YouTube channel. Thank you for all the subscriptions, thumbs up, comments, good and bad. We love hearing from you. And if you want to join our group, again, it's Galaxy Stock Market Essentials, $49 a month. Here is the link in the description below. Thank you so much for following. All right, let's get started. Where are we on this 2008 to 2009 financial crisis analog chart? And so this is from 2008, starting in February, ending in April 30th, 2009. And, markets continue to top. As they topped, it looks like it's going to go up forever. And bullish sentiment just basically pervades, especially amongst the retail traders. The problem is that, the markets are held up by a few stocks, maybe less than 1% of the entire market today, as it was in 2008, was being held up by a very small amount of stocks. Right now, it's all about Magnificent Seven stocks and AI stocks, and those are falling now. Okay, and we'll go a little bit into detail about that, but where are we right now? We are right here on this analog chart. And keep in mind of this chart as we go over the SPY charts later on. And of course, we have Fed starting to cut rates into this, and the Fed is injecting billions into the banking sector. And we'll go into just how much reverse repo discount window access that banks are using, which is a sign of liquidity stress. And oh boy, there are liquidity stresses. They like to sweep that under the rug. However, the regional banks are in serious trouble with liquidity and subprime auto loans and commercial mortgage security crisis. I've been talking about that at length, and that's not the scope of this video, although it kind of is, but we're going to be focused more on kind of the internals and what we believe will happen in the entire month of November. November is not going to be a good month, folks. And then we'll talk more about silver, we'll talk about XRP, we'll talk about our favorite Carvana, which is a very big fraud, and also we'll touch a little bit on SMCI, which reports earnings next week, and that is also a fraudulent company. Okay, but without further ado, this is where we are. We're right into this area. Fed is aggressively cutting into this. Starting next week, we're going to be seeing some aggressive sell-offs. The issue is that the market does not and will not go down in a straight line. You're going to have all of these interventions, as you saw the stick save on attempted stick save on Friday pre-market on all the indices, which basically sold off. It's now at the precipice of the gap, and we're going to be talking about those gaps. All the gaps are present on SPY, QQQ, NQES, you name it, it's all there because the market is coordinated. But the sell-off is coming, and if you want a copy of this chart, email me at coachbrandon@protonmail.com or just request it through x.com, leave a message, or on YouTube. Okay, sounds good. So let's move forward. So I said last week, ahead of FOMC 10/29/2025 Wednesday rate decision, I said, okay, the 50 basis point cut is expected and factored into the market. it really didn't matter whether they cut, stayed the same, or hiked interest rates. The market is poised to fall, and they're not going to have any effect on the 10-year yield, which is really what they're trying to control. And so, and also I found it peculiar that the meeting generally is at the middle of the month, and it was at the end of the month on the 29th. And then, of course, all the while, Fed was injecting, prior to that week, almost $385 billion into the reverse repo discount window to banks. I'm sorry, repo discount window to the banks. And I asked the question, does it matter? And we got the answer. They not only, in a big FU to Trump, they cut 25 basis point, which is basically doesn't matter again, right? No cuts, big cuts, jumbo cuts, it doesn't matter. The market is broken from the incessant money printing. There is no flow of cash or capital like they'd like you to be. There is scandal after scandal and fraud after fraud now surfacing on the subprime auto loans in the commercial mortgage-backed security areas and other types of private loans. Right now, spearheaded by the regional banks. However, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Powell was non-committal on further cuts. He did not commit to a further quantitative easing, although everybody's expecting it. Again, be careful what you expect versus what you get. Okay, you got to roll with the punches. And Fed injecting $385 billion to overnight repos to banks is a sign of liquidity stress, and that is continuing and ongoing. And the most recently, here's from Coin Bureau. Shout out to them for great work. Okay, they continue to pump overnight $29.4 billion into the market overnight. Now, these are coming at they're printing money. There is no money. The government is shut down, yet they're continuing to print money and borrow money, or whatever we consider borrowing anymore. They're just creating money out of thin air, and they're just injecting it into the markets. And the reason why they're doing this is because banks are insolvent. There are banks out there that are in trouble to the tune of $29.4 billion. Back in 2008 crisis, it was maybe $1 billion here, $500 million here and there. We're talking about $29.4 billion. Granted, there is inflation now because of all the money that they print. The Fed, while cutting 25 basis points and saying that the economy, merits watching because they think they have it under control, they do not have control. They have lost control. There is a clear sign of liquidity stress in the system. And we're going to be talking about this Carvana crap, right? I've been saying for almost 2 years that Carvana was a fraud, that they were not revealing their subprime loan loss reserves. And now it's going to basically come out in the form of all the tranches of these subprime slime that they have been selling to regional banks and other banks. And a lot of people are talking about Ally Bank as being one of the biggest holders of Carvana. Regardless, things are coming unglued at the seams. Okay, the reason why we're talking about that is because if you look at this guy right here, these are something that I've pointed out for you about a couple of years. All these insiders selling, and then all of a sudden they stop selling here, and that is because either they have sold completely or they know fraud is coming out and they don't want to be implicated in selling into these negative news that is about to come out. Carvana is about to crash, folks. Okay, that's something that we need to pay attention to. Okay, so going back to this Fed injecting $385 billion to overnight repos, this is a systematic stress, systematic and systemic. I can't talk this morning. Damn. Okay. So what happened after 25 basis point cut? 10-year yield skyrockets along with the U.S. dollar. That is never a good sign, folks. That is a systemic stress, not only in the debt market, but in the currency market, but in the economy as overall. Okay. And so what we got is a situation. Last week I said, hey, the dollar's falling and 10-year yield is rising, the TNX, right? And so we talked about this. It was at 39.97. The dollar was falling down to 98.93. They really want to get above this 100, right? But I've always said that in the currency war, right now, the way it is it's devalue your currency and get as many hard assets as possible. So that's why I keep saying it's a race to zero in the currency market. Whoever keeps having currency that's strong is going to lose the battle. And so what happened after the 25 basis point cut from the Fed? Well, what we got was basically now dollar spiking, getting near that $100 level. Remember, they want to devalue that currency. They want to hyperinflate that currency supply and then buy as many assets as possible. And that's what really the Trump administration and all the countries around the world, all the central banks around the world are doing is that they're printing money to buy gold, silver, XRP, Bitcoin. Okay, that's what this is all about, right? They know the end game is an implosion. And then after they cut the rates, the whole idea was to basically bring down this interest rate by cutting 25 basis point. And so they cut here. What we did was it spiked higher, gapped higher, and now we're making a bullish flag. We're going to go higher. This system is broken, folks. Get out of the regular banks. Make sure that you understand what is happening. Make sure you have tangible assets or you know how to basically trade this upcoming market crash. Okay, I know a lot of people, I'm bearish. How could you not be bearish with all this stuff? Okay, we're at market all-time highs and they cut 25 basis points. And then on top of all that, the market was expecting at least 50. Some of Trump's administration members were calling for 100 basis point jumbo cuts. Okay, they got 25. And if you ever think about if the Fed is really talking about being interested in 2% inflation and maximum employment, that is all bull crap. Federal Reserve Bank, there's nothing federal about them. They are not a part of the U.S. government, but they somehow have the ability to print money and control interest rates, but it doesn't really matter. Their ability or this basically aura of omniscience or the ability to steward American economy and the global economy is false. This is controlled by the global elite bank system, okay? So we talked about it. It's it's a race to zero, but it's rising. So that's an oh no. Okay. And then 10-year yield rises full point higher on a 25 basis point cut. Think about the stress in the system, folks. All right. So silver still bullish. No, it did not take off on the 1028 due to historic slam. And like I said, the deep state and the silver slam crew, gold slam crew. Okay, the central banks are going to fight this tooth and nail, yet they are not able to bring this down below the breakout point. Okay, they really want to get this thing below like the $40, right? $41 level, right into this area, but they were unable. And basically, now gold and silver, gold has a double bottom, and silver has inverse head and shoulders formation. What could possibly happen? Okay, we're still holding it at 48.160. Okay, yes, a lot of people are worried about this tail candle, but this is kind of outside of the body. All right, is it a bearish reversal candle? It is because it's manipulated. However, throughout the world, silver shortage continues. From my sources, the flight from JFK to LBMA, all these silver being flown out because it's no longer feasible for them to ship it out by ships anymore. They're flying silver in because, from my understanding, LBMA is within days of possibly declaring a failure to deliver. Oh boy. And then with all this economic problems, Carvana scandal, regional banking stress, liquidity stress as denoted by the Federal Reserve Bank discount window, we have a precipice. We're on the verge of something big blowing up. And based on my cycle analysis, the markets are about to basically start a earnest market correction / crash in that time frame, October 31st, from Halloween to November 8th. Watch for a big market turning hysteria to the downside coming. Okay, so let's talk about some of the stocks, and we're going to go over the technical analysis. Okay, so here's the SPY, okay? And I went back and we talked about this, right? We talked about how on the analog chart we have the same type of a chart formation occurring. We are going to close these gaps. We're going down, folks. We are going to probably take out down into these gap levels. If the sell-off intensifies next week, these are some of the targets to the 20 SMA all the way down to 610, to the 50 SMA by the blue line, and then of course this trend line, the intermediate trend line by this dotted red trend line, also to the 100 SMA. Okay, what will be the trigger? I think it's going to come from the stress in the banks. I've always talked about the regional banks, and as well as the global banks that are in trouble. I don't have actual tweet that came out, but UBS is trying to sue to make sure that the regulators do not sweep the assets that they took over from Credit Suisse blow up a few years ago. Okay, they're trying to maintain that relevance, because if they mark that to zero and make it go away, it's going to crash the banking system at the global level. Okay, but this is a warning sign that is happening right now on the SPY. We have the negative RSI, we have the topping pattern. Basically, that is the climax top. Okay, we've been basically incessantly moving higher in a blow-off top fashion, gapping higher when we need to. Look at all these gaps that are present. Okay. MACD histogram is basically diverging. However, right now we don't have the signal yet, but that I assume is coming next week on the SPY. Okay. We talked about this. This is exactly where we are, right? It looks exactly similar. This is exactly where we are. I anticipate next week we're going to get a pretty decent sized pullback that's going to shock everybody. Okay, so just look at where we are right here, and then look at where we are right here. This is from 2008 to 2009. Fed just previously cut some interest rates, and then we got this. So it doesn't have to be exact, but it does rhyme. Okay, this is what we have to look forward to in the coming months in next year. Okay, it's gonna be, they're gonna have these rips, folks. It's just not gonna go down in a straight line. You're gonna have these rips, and people are gonna jump all over me for calling me a Cassandra, but I lived through these. I've lived through these all the way from 1997. I've seen it all, and the Fed and the governments behave in the same way. As long as the fractional reserve banking system is alive, this is what you're going to get. I've talked about my McClellan Summation Index, and I said last week that we're going to run right into it, and then we're going to start signaling the downtrend. And so McClellan Summation Index, if you know nothing else about it, is that this trend is basically going to show you in real time what the market's going to do. Not all the time. If there's a lot of rigging or manipulation, yeah, then they could put out false signals. But I think they're done rigging. I mean, MACD here is about to form a death cross down here. What more can I say, folks? The market's going to crash. Okay, let's talk about silver. Okay, I told you that this is basically a rig job. They brought it back down. We found support about 8 EMA. Okay, we've kind of rejected about the 5 SMA, but that's just building energy. We're going to move higher, folks. All right, because this uptrend is still intact. Okay, that is basically a bullish divergence. All right. Of course, the MACD is basically showing something else, but at the same time, this is due to the manipulation. I know a lot of you think that I'm just basically, this perma silver bull. I'm not. I'm just talking about what is about to happen. If you look at what's happening around the world, the amount of silver demand that there is, how the other central banks are stockpiling gold and silver to a point where LBMA is basically out of their silver for delivery, basically within days at this point, because of the fact that they've been printing. Oh my gosh, I mean, I think just even this week alone, I think they've printed almost 100 billion ounces worth, not 100 billion, 250 million ounces worth of paper silver shorts. Okay, when they failure to deliver, it's going to squeeze like you've never seen before. So these type of metrics really don't matter at this point. Okay, all it did was take, a lot of you like to talk about how it's oversold, overbought. It just took it off of that metrics, folks. All right, so I believe that this longer term PPO ADX crush indicator is intact on the silver. Okay, physical silver is better than these paper contracts, But be prepared for volatility if you're trading the futures or the futures options, folks. All right, so here we are. They have successfully slightly put it below this breakout level. Okay, but they have not. This is not a bearish sign. I think we're going to start exploding higher this week when the market starts throwing a hissy fit, and it's coming, folks. Okay, let's see what gold is doing. Gold, basically, okay, a lot of you are saying that this is a bearish chart formation. Yeah, it did a double top and then fall off. We found support at 80 EMA. I think this is a reversal candle, and we're going to move higher on gold. It held the $4,000 level. Okay, when the squeeze comes, it's going to be epic, and I think it starts this week. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on with Carvana. I've been saying for months now, we're short Carvana, folks. Okay, negative divergence remains. We basically started rolling over and forming this rounded top. First target is this 50 SMA to 284. And then obviously, if the floodgates come out, some sort of news comes out, we're going to go all the way down into this pivot. I don't believe this pivot's going to hold. We're going to start targeting this 200 SMA, and then the original pivot where it broke out from all of the shenanigans is right here at the $80 level. It's coming, folks. Okay, Carvana is fraudulent. Okay, let's talk about now SMCI real quick. On the SMCI weekly, partly because they are reporting earnings, folks. All right, this is a bearish development. They keep rejecting at the top. All of that pump job as a result of the AI. Okay, AI bubble is about to burst. We're targeting this volatility range right into here. Ultimately, when the news comes out, I think this is the end result. This is where all the accounting gimmicks and fraud came out. SMCI basically is not going to report or give guidance, or I don't even know if they're reporting earnings this time around because of their accounting irregularities again, after saying that everything is fixed. It's not fixed, folks. Okay, this is a fraudulent company. Okay, Apple reported earnings beat, and everybody celebrated that. And I said, hey, look, there's going to be these exhaustion gaps. Okay, and what it did was it popped, and it's basically dropping. And I believe Apple is going to lead the way down. Okay, if you saw that kind of the sell-off after popping into the 179, 180 range, okay, Apple is going to be used to manipulate the markets, right? Apple is S&P 500. Okay, they're not going to let it go down without a fight. However, I think that jig is up for this particular stock. Okay. Now, let's talk about Costco, because Costco is basically losing members, and they basically made up for that by hiking membership fees. However, Costco is going to be the barometer for next week. I believe we're going to start falling down into these pivot levels and down back into these original, here levels of support. Okay. So if the market starts to correct and starts correcting down, okay, Costco has formed a head and shoulders, basically failed at this downtrend line. We're moving lower, folks. All right. And so that's what I have for now. Obviously, our group has a ongoing watch list, which has been phenomenal, to say the least. Okay. The other one that I want to talk to you about is Ionic, which is basically a IonQ. Okay, I call it Ionic because it sounds like it, but IonQ is basically quantum computing, right? They've been selling this off. We found support right above the 80 MA. I believe this thing moves higher. This is one that's on our watch list, going to be, and I gave it to you as a freebie here. Okay, so what do we do now then? What's going on? What's going on is that you need to see what XRP and the cryptocurrencies are doing, and they've been pushed down. The promised altcoin rally really didn't happen, and I think it's because the institutions are buying up XRP, XDC, Litecoin, and Bitcoin. Okay, but it needs one thing that's missing right now, which is the market crash. And I believe it's going to start somewhere between October 31st. I know the top is in now. We put in the Climax top. Okay. So will you be buying XRP? It's at 250. Last week it was at 273. We pulled back and we're beginning to recover, but I think we're going to chop around these levels. These are the times to buy in. You don't do this whenever it's at $1,000. Okay. A lot of hints and things coming out at what the banks are doing, what XRP is going to be used for. It's going to be used for liquidity. It's going to provide liquidity during the banking crisis that is happening because of liquidity crisis. Okay, it's not just for cross-border payments, folks. Is anyone listening? Okay, I don't want to hear it, but invariably, sadly, people are going to be lined up to buy it at 1,000 and then even higher when they could have bought it at 234. A lot of you are going to be selling it here because you've been holding it since 18 cents, 50 cents, whatever. And then you're going to say to 3 years down the road, and going, gosh, I bought it at 50 cents and sold it at 250 because it was going down. I wish I would have kept some. Don't be that guy. All right, so in conclusion, black swans are everywhere. Gold double bottoms and silver is forming inverse head and shoulders. FOMC cuts 25 basis point. It didn't matter, okay, because Fed doesn't matter. They are a globalist banking cartel that is not part of our government, okay? They're a bunch of clowns, okay? 10-year and U.S. dollar is rising. That's not good. That's signaling a potential market crash coming our way. Federal reverse repos, discount windows, banks are tapping it like it's 2008, 2009. Party on, folks. But everything's fine, right? Carvana is the kingpin of fraud. I also talked about SMCI reporting earnings. They're not going to report earnings. They can't. Their accounting is fraudulent. Okay, when that blows up, it's going to bring down AMD and NVIDIA along with it. Despite the silver slam, silver is positioned for a breakout in the ensuing weeks for the next week. 10-year yield and U.S. dollar spikes on Fed 25 basis point cut. It's supposed to come down, folks. XRP, XDC, LTC. It's getting old talking about this. Inverse head and shoulders, get them. WLFI. This is a governance token for possible U.S. Digital dollar that Trump may be releasing. It's on sale. Go get them while it's cheap. You got silver, got gold. Physicals are difficult to find still. Okay. Market climax top has now been reached. Watch Carvana, of course. Watch, obviously, and the reason why I don't put it on is I sound like a broken record, but SMCI, folks, fraud. Okay, yeah, that's about it. Crash is coming at the end of October 31st to November 8th. I'd still stand by it. I think the nail in the coffin was put in on Friday. All right, so if you like my video, and if you're not part of our community members, follow me at galaxy.market, like and subscribe at youtube.com, and comment all the good and bad things, right? Okay, we can't all agree on things, okay? But, I like them. I like reading about your negative comments and positive comments. It fuels me. And, if you want to work with me, you got to basically email me at coachbrandon@protonmail.com, or you want to join our entry level, not so entry. I mean, you get all the watch list and everything else, and market commentaries that you don't get on x.com or on YouTube. Click on the link in the description below. $49 a month, folks. It's worth it. And schedule a consultation. Otherwise, if you want to work with me at a mentorship level or want consultation, you got to email me. Okay? Anyways, let's get some alpha. It's going to be a topsy-turvy. It's going to be wild next week. Okay? So let's do this. Bye-bye.